The money hit my chest before I saw her hand move. Loose bills, sharp corners, then a paper slip that fluttered down like a verdict. "Take thee," my mother-in-law said. Nadine Sterling's voice was winter, thin, hard, clean. "Go get rid of that burden in your belly, and when you're done, get the hell out of this house and never come back." For 5 seconds, the world narrowed to two sounds, the bills skittering across cold tile, and my breath catching like it forgot how to work. I stood in the foyer in my funeral dress, 4 months pregnant, staring at a woman who had just buried her son. The dirt on Jalen Sterling's grave was still fresh. Sympathy cards still covered the entry table. The air still carried lilies and old incense from the service. Nadine, who had sobbed loud enough to shake the chapel, looked at me now like I was an unpaid bill she'd finally decided to throw away. Welcome to the Twists of Fate channel. Before we go further, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from and what time it is. Because what happened next taught me this. Heartbreak is loud, but cruelty is quiet. My hand went to my stomach on instinct. Under my palm, my baby shifted. Small, real, alive. "Burden?" I whispered. Nadine's mouth tightened. "Don't start! You heard me!" She nodded at the clinic address on the floor. "Pick it up." I didn't move. My feet felt glued to the tile, like the house wanted to witness my humiliation. "I'm not doing that," I said. My voice came out thin, but it was mine. Nadine's eyes sharpened. "You don't get to decide. My husband wanted this baby." At Jalen's name, something flickered in her gaze. Not grief, annoyance. Like I'd brought up a topic she'd already closed. "Jalen is gone," she snapped, "and I'm not raising another mouth, another expense, another reminder." Her eyes dropped to my belly with open disgust. "That thing won't bring him back." That thing. A hot sting climbed my throat. I wanted to scream that this was her grandson, that my baby had a heartbeat, knee that he kicked when I cried. But grief had made me tired in a bone-deep way. Nadine could smell weakness the way sharks smell blood. A week ago, I'd believed she was on my side. At the hospital, when the call came, SUV accident, mountain pass, no survivors. I broke in half. I fainted. I woke with an IV in my arm and Nadine clinging to me, sobbing, "Child, he's gone. How are we going to live now, you and I?" At the funeral, she clutched my shoulders and wailed, "My baby." She called me daughter. She told everyone, Jalen loved her. He loved that baby. Then the last guest left, and the mother I thought I knew disappeared. Nadine's voice turned flat. "You can go back to Georgia, back to those pecan fields, and those simple people who think my son was a fairy tale." "My parents loved Jalen," I said. Her laugh was soft as a blade. "They loved what he represented." "That's not true. Don't talk back to me in my house. In my house." The words landed like a kick. Jalen had told me this place was our fresh start. He'd held my hand in this very foyer and said, "We're going to build a life here, Aaliyah." He was a civil engineer with warm eyes and a patient voice. I was a pre-K teacher from a quiet town outside Savannah. When I told him I was pregnant, he spun me in our living room, then pressed his ear to my belly and whispered, "Hey, little one, it's your dad. I'm right here." Now I was right here, and he was supposedly in the ground. Nadine stepped closer, perfume heavy in the cold air. She lowered her voice, soft enough to sound kind, making it worse. "Don't make a spectacle," she said. "Don't go crying to the neighbors. Don't drag my family name into your little tragedy." Her eyes narrowed. "If you get loud, you'll regret it." My stomach dropped. The winter outside suddenly felt like it had moved into my veins. That's when I noticed the lock, new metal, brighter than the old hardware, a quiet upgrade, a decision already made. I bent slowly, more to steady myself than to obey. I gathered the bills one by one, fingers shaking so hard the paper crinkled. The clinic address stuck to my palm like a stain. When I straightened, Nadine was already moving. She went upstairs. Closets yanked open, hangers scraped, drawers slammed like gunshots in the silence. A suitcase hit the stairs with a heavy thud. My suitcase, Nadine returned dragging an old hard-shell case. She shoved it at my feet. The zipper was half open. My clothes were stuffed inside wrong, like she'd packed anger instead of fabric. "Your things," she said. "Take them. Take your burden. And go." "I have nowhere to go," I said, and I hated how small it sounded. "That's not my problem." I swallowed hard. "I'm carrying your grandson." She stared at me, then smiled without warmth. "No, you're carrying a mistake." Something inside me snapped, not loud, not dramatic, just a thin line breaking. "My baby is not a mistake," I said. This time my voice didn't shake. Nadine's smile vanished. She yanked the front door open. A gust of Chicago air slapped my cheeks, pulling tears out of my eyes before I could stop them. "Out," she said. My suitcase rolled over the threshold and clattered onto the porch. Nadine leaned close enough for only me to hear. "If you keep that baby," she murmured, "you'll learn what it means to be truly alone." Then she slammed the door. Not gentle, not polite. A hard, final slam. The deadbolt turned with a clean snap. Locked. I stood there a full minute, staring at the door like it might remember me. My knuckles were white around the crumpled bills. The paper with the clinic address was damp from my sweat, edges curling. Behind that wood, my wedding photos hung on the wall. Smiling lies. In front of it, an evil mother-in-law had just tried to buy my silence, my motherhood, my future. The street smelled like exhaust and cold metal. I tasted pennies in my mouth today. Just like that, I became a pregnant widow kicked out while pregnant, standing on a porch with my life in a suitcase and cash in my fist like a bribe. Chicago kept moving. Cars hissed on slush. People hurried past with coffee and conversations. Nobody looked twice. I could go back to Georgia, walk into my parents' kitchen with this belly and this grief and the truth. I could watch my mama's face collapse and my daddy's hands clench. I could make them carry my pain with me, or I could go to the clinic on Nadine's paper and do what she demanded. I looked down at the address. The letters seemed to dance, mocking me. Get rid of that burden. My baby shifted again, and a tight ache rolled through my stomach. I wrapped both arms around myself, protective and furious. No, not at her clinic, not on her terms. I forced my feet to move. I dragged my suitcase down the sidewalk, away from Nadine's door, away from the life she'd locked behind a deadbolt. Each step felt heavy, like grief had weight. At the corner, I found a stone bench under a bare tree and sat hard, breathing through the tightness in my chest. People passed. Everyone had somewhere to return to. Only I was a lonely island in a city that didn't know my name. I cried quietly, because my tears belonged to me, not to her. Then I wiped my face with the sleeve of my dress and made myself a promise. I would check on my baby, but not at the place Nadine chose. I would find a small private clinic where no one knew my mother-in-law, where no one could cash her cruelty like a check. And if you think you know what happens next, don't leave. Because the first receipt they handed me in that alley clinic didn't have my name on it. It had my husband's. A clinic receipt had my husband's name. And that's when a thought I never allowed, husband faked his death, came creeping into my bones. So tap like if you're still with me and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is, because the next door I walked through didn't lead to comfort. It led to the truth. The wind off Lake Michigan cut through my dress like it had teeth, but I kept walking anyway, because standing still felt like dying twice. I didn't go back to that porch. I didn't look over my shoulder. I just followed the sidewalk until the neighborhood thinned out and the building stopped looking like money. When my legs finally gave up, I found a cheap motel with a flickering sign and a lobby that smelled like bleach and burned coffee. I paid in cash, the same cash Nadine Sterling had thrown at me, and the clerk didn't ask my name. He didn't ask why my eyes were swollen or why I kept one hand pressed to my belly like I was holding the world together. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the clinic address again. Nadine's handwriting wasn't on it. The paper was typed, clean and official, like the cruelty came with a letterhead. Get rid of that burden. I folded the paper until it was a hard little square, then shoved it deep into my purse where it couldn't look at me. My baby, my son, gave a soft roll under my palm. A small reminder that I wasn't alone, even if the city had decided to treat me like a ghost. That was the strangest part of being a pregnant widow. People think grief means you get time. They think sorrow grants you softness from the world. But grief doesn't slow bills. It doesn't stop locks from turning. It doesn't keep an evil mother-in-law from calling your unborn child a mistake. I laid back and tried to breathe. The ceiling fan ticked, steady and indifferent. And as my eyes closed, Savannah came back to me. Warm air and red dirt, rows of pecan trees, and my mama's kitchen smelling like sugar and butter. The town I'd left behind for love. My name is Aaliyah Carter. Before Chicago, before funerals and clinic receipts, I was the kind of woman who owned more storybooks than shoes. I taught pre-K in a little school outside Savannah, where mornings began with glue sticks, tiny sneakers, and children who believed the world would be kind if they asked nicely enough. I believed that too. Then Jalen Sterling walked into my life like a promise that didn't need to shout. He wasn't flashy. He didn't come in with chains and loud laughter. He came in with a clean button-down, a calm voice, and eyes that stayed on your face when you talked, like what you said mattered. He was in town for a short-term engineering project. The city had hired his firm to reinforce an old bridge that flooded every spring. He rented a modest place near the edge of town and started showing up at the diner, where teachers went when we were too tired to cook. The first time I noticed him, I was grading little worksheets at the counter, sipping sweet tea, trying not to think about how my paycheck never seemed to stretch far enough. He asked me, polite as a Sunday usher, if the seat next to me was taken. When I said no, he sat down and ordered coffee like he actually drank it, not like it was just for show. "Long day?" he asked. I glanced at my stack of papers and laughed. "You could say that." He smiled, small and genuine. "What do you teach?" "Pre-K?" "Saint work," he said, and there was respect in his tone, not pity. Over the next few weeks, he became a steady presence, showing up at the diner at the same time, asking about my day, telling me about his project without making it sound like he was doing me a favor by letting me listen. I learned he'd grown up in Chicago. His mother, Nadine, had high standards, he said with a grin, like it was a harmless quirk. His father had passed when he was younger. His family had money, but Jalen didn't wear it like a crown. He wore it like a tool, quiet, useful, not something to swing at people. He was mature in a way that made me feel safe. He listened, he remembered, he showed up. The first time he came to my classroom, it wasn't romantic. It was practical. The school needed volunteers for a field day, and he offered to help. I watched him kneel down to tie a little boy's shoe like it mattered. I watched him wipe juice off a child's chin without flinching. I watched my kids, who didn't trust strangers easily, lean toward him like he was sunlight. Later that afternoon, when the last kid had been picked up and the room finally went quiet, he looked around at the tiny chairs and finger paint stains and said, "This is real work." I shrugged like it was nothing. "It's just what I do." He shook his head. "No, this is you." That's when I started falling, slow and steady, like walking down steps you don't realize you've been descending until you're already at the bottom. We dated the way grown folks date, simple dinners, long drives, conversations that lasted past midnight. He didn't rush me. He didn't play games. If he said he would call, he called. If he said he would be there, he was. When he proposed, it wasn't in front of a crowd. It was on my parents' porch, with the cicadas singing and the sunset laying gold across the fields. My mama cried like she'd been holding her breath my whole life. My daddy shook Jalen's hand twice, hard, like he was testing if a man could keep his word. "Take care of our girl," my daddy said. Jalen looked him in the eyes. "Yes, sir." I believed him. Nadine flew down for the wedding and swept into my life like she was stepping onto a stage that already belonged to her. She was elegant, perfect hair, perfect nails, a smile that looked practiced but warm enough to pass. The first time she met me, She held my hands between hers and said, "Aaliyah, you're even prettier in person." She praised my manners, my smile, my sweet southern spirit. At her house in Chicago, back before it felt like a cage, she walked me through every room like she was showing me the future. "Our family lacks nothing," she said, patting my arm. "We only needed a virtuous daughter-in-law who knows how to care for a home." Then she leaned in and whispered, "Think of me as your own mother. Tell me anything." I was naive enough to take that as love. Our wedding day was full of blessing and laughter. People clapped when we kissed. My friends teased me about marrying a city man. Jalen whispered in my ear, "We'll visit Savannah all the time." He promised my parents we'd be back for Christmas, for birthdays, for pecan season. Then I followed him to Chicago, to a spacious house he said was a wedding gift from his family. He carried my boxes inside like I weighed nothing. He showed me the neighborhood, the parks, the grocery store with too many options. He took me downtown on weekends like he wanted me to fall in love with the city the way he'd fallen in love with me. He didn't let me lift anything heavy. "A teacher's hands are for children," he'd say, "not hard labor." When I found out I was pregnant, I told him in our kitchen with my heart in my throat. He stared at the test, then at me, then he laughed. One big, joyful sound I hadn't heard from him before. He hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe and spun me right there on the tile. "We did it," he whispered. "We did it." That night, he pressed his ear to my belly like it was a radio station only he could hear. "Hey, little man," he said softly. "It's your dad. I'm here." I believed I was the happiest woman in the world, but happiness can be a thin glass, and storms don't always announce themselves. A few weeks later, Jalen got a call he didn't want to take. I watched his face change as he listened, jaw tightening, eyes going distant. He told me his firm needed him at a construction site out near the Rockies. "Unexpected," he said. "Just for a couple days." I ironed his shirts myself. I packed his bag. I begged him to be careful, like my words could wrap around him and keep him safe. He kissed my forehead and promised, "I'll be back soon." 2 days later, his company called. SUV Mountain Pass, no survivors. And in one phone call, I became a pregnant widow before I even learned how to be a mother. Lying on that motel bed, I stared at the water-stained ceiling and realized something that made my stomach twist harder than hunger. I didn't just lose my husband. I lost the person who stood between me and his mother's true face. And now I was alone in Chicago, with a baby on the way, carrying grief like a weight. And the first decision of my new life pressing down on me like a hand on my throat. Because in the morning, I would go find that private clinic, not to do what Nadine wanted, but to hear my son's heartbeat again, and figure out how a woman survives when the people who should protect her become the ones trying to erase her. Morning in Chicago came pale and stingy, like the sun had to fight for permission to show itself. I hadn't really slept. I'd only drifted in and out of a half-dream where the same two sounds kept replaying. Nadine Sterling's deadbolt snapping shut, and the imagined thump of my baby's heartbeat, steady, stubborn, alive. In the motel bathroom mirror, I looked like a woman carved out of exhaustion, swollen eyes, funeral twist coming loose, lips pressed tight so I wouldn't start crying again. I pressed my palm to my belly and whispered, "We're still here." The clinic address Nadine threw at me was folded deep in my purse, small as a curse. I didn't take it out. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to give it the satisfaction of existing in daylight. I knew one thing. I would not go to the place she chose. Not alone, not on her terms. If she wanted my pregnancy ended, she would have to live with the fact that she didn't own my body. Outside, the wind off Lake Michigan felt like it had teeth. I pulled my coat tight, dragged my suitcase down the motel stairs, and walked until I found a bus stop. I asked strangers, quietly, carefully, where a woman could get an ultrasound without drawing attention. Most people shrugged. One woman looked at my belly and my funeral dress and didn't ask questions. She only pointed with her chin. "Alley off Ashland," she said. "Small clinic. Private. They'll see you." The alley was narrow and damp. tucked between brick buildings marked with graffiti and old posters. A faded sign hung above a steel door. Pierce Family Clinic. The letters looked sun-bleached, stubborn, and tired. Like the people who kept the place running. I stood with my hand on the knob, heart hammering. Some doors open into comfort. Some doors open into truth. And the problem was, from the outside, you can't always tell the difference. I pushed in. Warm air hit my face, thick with disinfectant and old coffee. The waiting room was small, mismatched chairs, a tired potted plant, magazines with corners curled from too many hands. A clear plastic shield sat on the front desk like a border. A woman behind the desk looked up. Sleek bun. Sharp eyes. Name tag, Renee. Appointment? She asked. No, I whispered. I'm 4 months. I just need to make sure my baby's okay. Renee's gaze flicked to my belly, then to my face. She didn't smile, but her voice softened a notch. Fill this out. Sit. We'll squeeze you in. I sat near a space heater that clicked and hummed like it was barely holding on. A morning talk show murmured from a TV no one watched. Somewhere down the hall, a newborn cried. Thin and persistent. And it made my throat ache. 10 minutes later, a nurse called. Aaliyah Carter? My legs felt shaky when I stood. My hand went to my stomach again, protective. The nurse guided me down a narrow hallway into an exam room and handed me a paper gown. When the door opened again, an older man stepped in. Gray hair, thick glasses, dark skin. A calm face with lines that looked earned. His white coat read Dr. Calvin Pierce. He didn't rush me. He didn't stare at my belly like it was a headline. Ms. Carter, he said gently, pulling up a stool. Tell me what you need. My voice cracked. An ultrasound. I've had a lot of stress. Dr. Pierce held my gaze like he understood the word stress carried a whole other story. All right, he said. We'll check your little one. The room dimmed. Cool gel spread across my skin. The wand moved over my belly. The screen flickered, and then my son appeared in black and white grain. Tiny spine, small fist, the curve of his head. I covered my mouth. Tears came fast, hot, humiliating. Dr. Pierce turned up the volume. Thump, 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 strong, regular. He's healthy, Dr. Pierce said quietly. Heart rate looks good. He, a boy, Jalen's boy. My breath shook. I laughed once, broken, and wiped my face with the back of my hand. The nurse offered tissues. Dr. Pierce waited until I could breathe again before he turned the screen off and helped me sit up. You're okay, he said. And he's okay. At the front desk, Renee rang me up. I pulled out the crumpled bills Nadine had thrown at me. My fingers were clumsy. Renee counted fast, printed a receipt, and slid it across the counter. Then her face changed, just a tightening around the mouth, a quick flash of panic. I followed her eyes to the paper, and my lungs forgot how to work. Jalen Sterling. Top line. Bold, like a stamp. The date. Today, the time. Minutes ago. A clinic receipt had my husband's name. My hands started shaking so hard the paper crackled. Renee, I whispered. Why does it say? She snatched it back like it burned her. Printer error. My husband is dead, I said, too loud. The waiting room went still. A couple people looked up. Renee's eyes darted to the hallway, to the camera in the corner, to the door behind her. I said it's a printer error, she repeated, but her voice sounded like she was begging me not to push. Before I could speak again, the office door opened and Dr. Pierce stepped out. He took one look at Renee's face, then at mine. What's going on? He asked. Renee forced a tight smile. Nothing, glitch. Dr. Pierce held out his hand. Let me see. Reluctantly, Renee handed him the receipt. His eyes scanned it. His brow lowered a fraction. He looked at me over his glasses. Ms. Carter, he said softly, come back to my office. Renee's stare followed me as I walked down the hallway. It wasn't hostile. It was afraid. Dr. Pierce shut his office door and set the receipt on his desk like it was evidence. Tell me the truth, he said. Who is Nadine Sterling to you? My throat tightened. My mother-in-law. And Jalen Sterling? He asked. My husband, I whispered. He died last week. Dr. Pierce sat back, thinking. Then he spoke in a careful, low voice. That receipt didn't print itself, he said. Someone used Jalen Sterling's information in our system. My stomach dropped. How? Dr. Pierce watched my face. Did Nadine give you money and a clinic address? He asked. I froze. Then I nodded, shame burning my cheeks. Yes. She told me to get rid of my baby. Dr. Pierce's mouth hardened. I suspected as much. Why? I asked, panic rising. Why would you suspect it? Because Nadine Sterling called my office a few days ago, he said. She asked questions, specific questions. Then she asked if we could schedule something under Jalen's name. The room tilted. Under his name? I echoed. Dr. Pierce nodded. Names open doors, he said. And sometimes people use paperwork the way others use fists. My mind raced. If Nadine was using Jalen's name in a clinic system, what was she trying to do? Confuse me? Prove something? Set up a story? Dr. Pierce leaned forward. Listen to me, he said. Do not go to the clinic she chose. Not alone. And you need someone in your corner. I don't have anyone, I whispered. My parents are in Georgia. Jalen is... My voice broke. Dr. Pierce's gaze stayed steady. You do have someone, he said. Jalen's closest friend has been asking about you, worried. His name is Darius King. The name landed in my memory like a photograph. Wedding day, Jalen's arm around a tall man with a bright smile. Darius, I whispered. Dr. Pierce picked up his phone. I'm calling him, he said. We'll meet somewhere public. Somewhere safe. Before I left his office, I passed the front desk. Renee didn't look at me. But as I walked by, she slipped something into my hand. Fast, secret, a small folded note. Check the appointment log. Not safe to ask here. I shoved it into my pocket, heart pounding, and stepped back into the alley, with the cold air biting my cheeks. A clinic receipt had my husband's name, and suddenly, one forbidden thought wouldn't stop circling my skull. What if my husband faked his death? What if the accident was a lie? What if my mother-in-law wasn't grieving at all? The coffee shop Dr. Pierce chose was 2 blocks away, warm and bright against the winter. The velvet beans smelled like espresso and cinnamon, like normal life. Dr. Pierce picked a table in the back corner, facing the entrance. Darius King arrived with tension in his shoulders. Mid-30s, broad build, neat beard, eyes that looked like they'd been fighting sleep for days. When he saw me, his face tightened with guilt. Aaliyah, he said softly. I'm sorry. I didn't have room for his apology. Why is my husband's name on a receipt? I asked, voice shaking. Tell me the truth. Darius sat down slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter me. I don't have every answer, he said. But I know the story we were told is crooked. Dr. Pierce said nothing, just watched, giving Darius space. Darius took a breath. The casket was closed, he said. And Nadine handled everything, paperwork, identification, all of it. Too fast, too clean. My throat burned. I never saw his face, I admitted. Darius's eyes softened. I know, he said. And that's not your fault. Then whose body? I couldn't finish. Darius shook his head. I don't know, he said. But I got a message 3 days ago from a number I didn't recognize. It was short. It said, Watch Aaliyah. Don't trust my mother. My skin went cold. From Jalen? I whispered. Darius hesitated, then nodded. I believe it was him, he said. Because the message included something only he would say. A phrase from college. A joke. My hands trembled. Hope and rage tangled together. Why didn't he tell me? I asked, voice cracking. Why would he let me bury him? Darius's jaw tightened. Because he thought he was protecting you, he said. He thought if you didn't know where he was, you couldn't be forced to reveal it. Forced? The word hit like a bruise. Darius reached into his jacket and slid a cheap burner phone across the table. "This is the phone he used," he said. He wiped it. But sometimes people miss things when they're scared. There might be something left. Call log, drafts, anything. I stared at the phone. It looked ordinary, like it couldn't possibly hold my husband's life inside it. Dr. Pierce leaned in. "Darius," he said, "what do you know about the accident itself?" Darius exhaled. "The route doesn't match," he said. And Nadine pushed the narrative hard. Dangerous pass, terrible luck, no survivors. But Jalen texted me the day before he left. He said he was going somewhere else. My stomach twisted. "So it could be a fake accident," I whispered. Darius's eyes met mine. "Or a real one that was arranged," he said quietly. The words made my blood feel thick. Dr. Pierce's voice stayed calm. "Right now," he said, "our priority is Miss Carter's safety. She is a pregnant widow in a city where she has no family nearby. Someone is using Jalen's name. Nadine is pressuring her to terminate. That's coercion at best and something worse at worst." Darius nodded. "I can get her a safe place," he said. "Quiet. No name on a lease." I hated that I needed help, but I needed it. An hour later, I stood inside a small apartment in a quiet brick building. Clean couch, simple kitchen, a folded blanket, the kind of place where you could breathe without feeling watched. Darius set grocery bags on the table, soup, crackers, ginger tea. "Eat," he said. "Your little man needs fuel." Little man. The phrase tightened my throat. I pulled out Renee's note and showed it to him. Darius's eyes narrowed. "She's scared," he said. "That means someone's leaning on her." "Like Nadine," I whispered. Darius didn't correct me. That night, once the apartment finally settled into silence, the fear came back in waves. The radiator pinged. The hallway creaked. Every sound felt like a footstep I hadn't heard. I set the burner phone on the table and stared at it until my eyes burned. Cheap plastic, scratched screen. Nothing about it looked important, and yet my whole life might be trapped inside. Darius had left after making me promise I'd keep the chain on the door and not open up for anyone. "Even if they say they're from the building," he warned. "Even if they sound polite." I tried to eat the soup he brought, but my stomach revolted. I settled for crackers and ginger tea and kept one hand on my belly like I could anchor my son to safety with a touch. Then I picked up the burner phone. Passcode prompt. I tried Jalen's birthday. Wrong. Our anniversary. Wrong. My birthday. Wrong. A sharp, hopeless laugh escaped me, and a memory flashed. Jalen in our kitchen, tapping numbers into his phone with a grin. "This date matters," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "If anything ever happens, remember it." At the time, I'd called him dramatic. Now my fingers shook as I typed the date that lived inside me, like a second heartbeat. My baby's due date. The phone unlocked with a soft click, and I inhaled like I'd been underwater. The screen looked wiped clean. No contacts, no photos, no messages. Just a plain background and generic apps. Jalen had stripped it down to bone. But the call log wasn't empty. I scrolled, breath catching when I saw a number labeled with a location instead of a name. Pierce Clinic. 3 calls. The last one, 2 days ago. 2 days after the accident story. 2 days after the world told me my husband was gone. My hands went numb. If those timestamps were real, either someone had the phone after he died, or Jalen was still alive. I forced myself to keep digging. On the second screen sat an icon so plain I almost missed it. Notes. I tapped it. Another password prompt appeared. Jalen had locked this separately. I tried the due date again. Wrong. I stared at the blank field, thinking of the only password he ever treated like a secret. I typed my name. Aaliyah. The app opened. Inside were audio files, short, dated, labeled with phrases that felt like the start of a confession. My throat tightened as I plugged in the cheap earbuds tucked in the case and pressed the first one. Static hissed, then Jalen's voice filled my ears. Low, tight, close. Aaliyah, he said, if you're hearing this, something went wrong, and I'm sorry. My eyes burned. I didn't tell you because you're pregnant and you deserve peace, he continued. But my mother thinks control is love, and she's planning. Planning. The word made my stomach turn. The next file label read, Mom. I pressed play. Nadine's voice came through first, smooth and firm. Listen to me, Jalen. You disappear, you cut contact. That's the only way. Jalen sounded exhausted. Mom, I can fix it. No, she snapped. You will do exactly what I tell you. Jalen's breath was audible. Aaliyah is my wife. She's a liability, Nadine said, cold as glass. And that baby will tie you to her forever. My blood went ice. Don't talk about my child like that, Jalen said. Nadine sighed, impatient. Your child isn't born yet. Your life is. Start over. Let me handle the messy parts. What does that mean? Jalen asked. A pause, then Nadine, almost gentle, said, It means you trust me, like you always have. The recording ended. I sat in the dim apartment, earbuds still in, hands shaking. My mother-in-law's contempt wasn't a theory anymore. It was her voice, captured and real. The third file label hit me like a bruise. Aaliyah. I pressed play. Nadine again. This time softer, the way she sounded when she wanted someone to swallow fear. If you don't do this, they'll hurt her, she said. Do you want Aaliyah dragged into it? Jalen's voice strained. No. Then you take the route I give you, Nadine said, and I will handle Aaliyah. I will handle the baby. You won't hurt her, Jalen said. Nadine gave a small laugh. Don't be dramatic, she replied. I'll keep her alive. That's more than she deserves. I ripped the earbuds out like the words burned. Keep her alive. It wasn't grief. It wasn't a mother's worry. It was power, casual, arrogant, and absolute. I pressed my hands to my belly and tried to breathe. My son shifted, a slow roll, and it steadied me. We're still here, I whispered again, but the words sounded different now, sharper. When Darius returned the next morning with Dr. Pierce, I didn't waste time. I played the recordings. I showed them the call log. I handed them the phone like it was evidence, not a lifeline. Darius's face hardened with every second of Nadine's voice. Dr. Pierce listened like a man watching a puzzle finally form an ugly picture. This is not mourning, he said quietly. This is a strategy. We backed up everything, audio files, call logs, screenshots, onto Darius's laptop, and a flash drive Dr. Pierce insisted on holding himself. 2 copies at least, he said. If one disappears, the other survives. Then Dr. Pierce called Renee. Not to corner her, not to pressure her, to give her a choice. An hour later, she agreed to meet after closing, outside, behind the clinic, away from cameras. We went at dusk, arriving separately. The clinic sign was dark. The lot smelled like wet asphalt and cold trash. Renee slipped out the back door with her coat zipped to her chin and fear in her eyes. I shouldn't be doing this, she whispered. You shouldn't be trapped either, Dr. Pierce replied. Renee handed him a manila envelope. She came in, Renee said, voice shaking. Nadine Sterling, with a big man. He stood by the door like I was about to steal something. Brick. Renee pulled out a printed sheet and pointed. Appointment log, she said. See it? Sterling J. Special consult, requested by NS. And this note, spouse signature required. She wanted it time-stamped, official. My throat closed as I stared at the line. My husband's name printed in a system like he was still walking around. Renee flipped to another page. These are form templates, she whispered. Not ours. Uploaded into the system. Waivers. Voluntary termination and relocation. She wanted a paper trail. A legal shield, I murmured. Renee nodded hard. And she asked about footage retention, she added. She said she might need it if someone tried to lie later. Darius swore under his breath. Renee's eyes met mine. If you go back to her house, she said, don't go alone. He asked about you today, the big man. He said he needed to finish the job if you didn't cooperate. My blood turned cold. We sent Renee home with Dr. Pierce's number and a promise. If Nadine tried to squeeze her again, Dr. Pierce would help her get legal protection. Renee didn't look relieved. She looked like a woman counting exits. Afterward, Darius made a call. Lieutenant Booker, he told me. Homicide. He's skeptical, but he'll listen if we bring something solid. Booker met us in an unmarked sedan parked 2 streets away. Mid-40s, strong jaw, eyes that didn't flinch. I'm not here for family drama, he said. I'm here because coercion plus fraud plus a suspicious accident can turn lethal fast. We showed him the receipt, the appointment log, and played a short excerpt of Nadine's voice. Just enough. Booker's eyes sharpened at, she's a liability. His jaw tightened at, I'll keep her alive. That's a threat, he said flatly. He looked at me. If you step into that house alone, you might not step back out. My stomach clenched. I need her to say it, I whispered. On record. I need her to admit she's paying me to terminate, that she's forcing me. Booker considered, then nodded once. All right, he said. You wear the recorder, you keep your phone on you, you stay near the door, you don't drink anything, and I'll keep a unit close, but not obvious. The plan was simple and terrifying. Bait Nadine into confessing, then get out. By the time we drove back to my apartment, the winter sky had already started bruising into evening. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, but my voice, when I practiced it, came out soft and broken, exactly the way Nadine liked me. I stared at the recorder's red light and thought about my son's heartbeat on Dr. Pierce's screen. Thump, 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 thump. I wasn't going to let Nadine Sterling erase that sound. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Nadine's plan wasn't only about controlling me, it was about controlling the timeline. Every form she printed, every appointment she tried to lodge under Jalen's name, every timestamp felt like a nail hammered into a story she wanted the world to accept. Dr. Pierce said it plainly on the drive back. She's building reasonable doubt in advance, he murmured. If you ever claim she coerced you, she'll pull out papers that say you agreed. If you ever claim Jalen is alive, she'll point to records that suggest he was handled properly. How do I fight paper? I asked, voice thin. You fight it with better paper, Darius said from the driver's seat. And with audio, and with witnesses. Back at the apartment, we went over the materials like we were studying for a test that decided whether my son lived safely in the world. Dr. Pierce kept repeating one sentence. Evidence is how you survive people who smile while they hurt you. We printed copies. We photographed pages with our phones. Darius emailed backups to a secure account he created in front of me so I could watch the password being made. Dr. Pierce wrote down that password on paper and folded it into his wallet like it was a prescription. Then Darius pulled the curtains closed and killed the lights, moving through the room with the careful quiet of a man used to being watched. You think Brick is near? I whispered. Darius didn't answer right away. He went to the window and lifted the edge of the blind a fraction. There's an SUV on the corner, he said. Could be nothing, could be him. Either way, we don't take chances. My skin prickled. So what do I do? Just hide? For a minute, he said. Not forever, just long enough to move the chess pieces. That was when I realized how much of this was strategy, not emotion. Nadine wasn't reacting. She was directing. Lieutenant Booker texted Darius again. Short, clipped updates like a man who didn't have time for comfort. Unit ready. Call me if she moves. Do not let her isolate you. Darius handed me the small emergency phone again and showed me the single-button function twice, making me repeat it until my fingers could do it without thinking. If you feel the room shift, he said, you press it. You don't hesitate. What if I'm wrong? I asked. Darius's gaze didn't soften. If you're wrong, you feel stupid for a day, he said. If you're right and you hesitate, you might not get a second chance. Dr. Pierce checked me again. Blood pressure, pulse, the way my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Stress tightens your body, he said. Drink water. Eat something real. Breathing isn't optional. I tried. I really tried. But my mind kept replaying Nadine's voice in my earbuds. She's a liability. I'll keep her alive. The words sounded like a contract written in ice. To distract myself, I opened the burner phone again and scrolled through the audio list. There were more files than the 3 I'd listened to, some only a few seconds long, some longer. Didn't play them all. Not yet. I was afraid of what else I might hear. Afraid of learning that Jalen had willingly agreed to disappear. Afraid of learning he'd chosen distance over me. But one file title caught my eye. Bus ticket. My breath caught. That was Nadine's plan for me. Send me away, clean and quiet. I pressed play. It was Jalen's voice, quick and tense, like he'd recorded it while walking. If my mom tries to send you away, he said, don't go. Don't sign anything. Don't get on a bus. Call Darius. Call Dr. Pierce. If you have to, call the police. She'll make it sound reasonable. It won't be. The message ended. A chill ran down my spine. He'd predicted this. He'd seen his mother's mind like a map. Darius noticed my face. What? He asked. I played the clip for him. When it ended, Darius exhaled slowly. He knew, he said. He knew she'd try to erase you. My throat tightened. So where is he? I whispered again. Darius didn't answer. He didn't promise me anything he couldn't prove. He only said, we get you through tonight, then we keep pulling the thread. We rehearsed the call to Nadine the way actors rehearse a scene. Dr. Pierce played Nadine, reading her lines cold. Darius corrected my tone. More shaky, less angry. Don't sound like you have support. It felt disgusting, turning my pain into performance. But it also felt powerful, because I wasn't begging Nadine anymore. I was baiting her. When I finally made the call, I wasn't calling as her victim. I was calling as a witness. And the moment she told me to come to the house, the moment she hung up like she'd sealed a deal, the apartment went silent with intent. Darius checked the street again. The SUV was gone. That's worse, he muttered. Means he moved. Booker texted, movement near Sterling home. Be careful. My heart kicked in my chest. Dr. Pierce touched my shoulder, grounding me. Remember, he said softly, your job is not to win an argument. Your job is to leave alive. I nodded, fingers tight around the recorder. My son rolled inside me, a slow pressure that reminded me I wasn't alone in this body. Darius walked me to the door and paused. One more thing, he said, voice low. If Nadine offers you a drink, you say you're nauseous. If she tells you to sit far from the door, you need air. If she tries to hand you a pen, you read, you stall, you keep her talking, and you keep your feet pointed toward the exit. I swallowed. And if Brick is there? Darius's eyes hardened. Then we don't wait, he said. You leave the second you see him. Booker's unit will move if you hit that button. I nodded again, pulse loud. I stepped into the cold evening, feeling like I was walking into the mouth of a story that wanted to swallow me. But I carried something Nadine didn't expect, her own voice. On the walk to Darius's car, my breath fogged the air in front of me, and I kept thinking about the ultrasound monitor, about that small spine and that stubborn heart. Nadine could call my child a burden, but she couldn't unmake him. Every step I took was proof. I was still choosing, right now. He paced once, then stopped and looked at me hard. You're going to hate what I'm about to say, he said. What? I asked. You have to act, he said. You have to play the part Nadine expects, the broken, grieving wife. If she thinks you're helpless, she'll get careless. If she thinks you're gathering allies, she'll get dangerous. I swallowed. The last word tasted like metal. So I call her, I said. Darius nodded. You call her. You sound scared. You sound unsure. You let her talk. He handed me his phone. Use mine, he said. Not yours. Not the burner. I dialed Nadine's number from memory. My fingers felt numb. She answered on the second ring. Hello, I forced a sob into my voice. Nadine! It's me. A pause. Measured, satisfied. Aaliyah? I haven't slept, I whispered. I keep thinking about what you said. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this alone. Nadine exhaled like a woman hearing exactly what she wanted. Good, she said. You're finally thinking clearly. My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice small. I might go to the clinic, I whispered. But I lost some money. I dropped it. Silence. Then, low. How much? 200, I lied. You will not make a fool of me, Nadine said. I'm not, I sobbed. I'm falling apart. Another pause. Then, come to the house, she said. We'll talk. I'll give you what you need. Today. Before dark. Darius shook his head at me, mouthing, no. But Nadine was already tightening the rope. I don't think I can, I whispered. Yes, you can, Nadine snapped. And you will. You will not wander around the city embarrassing this family. Embarrassing. Not worried. Not grieving. Embarrassed. Then she hung up. My hands trembled around the phone. She wants you back in her territory, Darius said. Not public, not neutral, her house. What do we do? I asked. Darius's face hardened. We get evidence, he said, because right now it's your word against hers. And Nadine Sterling looks like the kind of woman people believe. He pulled a tiny recorder from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Wear it, he said. Hidden, it records everything. I stared at it, fear crawling up my spine. You want me to go back in there? Not alone, he said. I'll be outside. If the vibe shifts, you leave. If she tries to trap you, I intervene. What about police? I asked. Darius hesitated, then made a call. Low voice, short sentences. He hung up and looked at me. Lieutenant Malcolm Booker, he said. Homicide. I told him we might have a situation involving coercion, fraud, and an accident that doesn't add up. He said if we get something concrete, he'll listen. Homicide. My stomach rolled. Darius walked me through what to say. How to ask questions that sounded like confusion, not suspicion. How to get Nadine to repeat her own cruelty out loud. How to keep my face soft, even when my blood boiled. By late afternoon, darkness had already started creeping in around the edges of the sky. Chicago did that, turned day into night like it was flipping a switch. Darius parked a block away from the house. Text me if you can, he said. If you can't, just get out. Don't be brave. Be alive. I nodded, my throat tight. My hand went to my belly. My baby gave a faint kick, and it steadied me like a hand on my back. I walked up the porch steps alone and knocked. The door opened immediately, like Nadine had been waiting with her hand on the knob. She wore pearls and a cream sweater, mourning already polished into elegance. Her eyes scanned me like inventory. Well, she said, look who decided to be reasonable. I lowered my gaze, playing my part. I'm sorry, I whispered. Shoes off, she ordered. The tile under my socks was colder than I remembered. Nadine didn't offer water. She didn't offer a chair until she wanted something. She led me to the living room and gestured toward the couch like a queen granting permission. On the coffee table sat a neat stack of documents. Thick, formal, paperwork with weight. My pulse spiked. Sit, Nadine said. I sat on the edge, recorder hidden beneath my coat, pressing against my skin like a secret heartbeat. Nadine sat across from me, posture perfect. You said you lost money, she said. I nodded, eyes down. I dropped some. Careless, she snapped. She pulled an envelope from a drawer and tossed it onto the table. Count it. I didn't touch it. Nadine, I whispered, letting my voice tremble. What happens after the clinic? Nadine's lips tightened. After, she said, you leave. You go back to Georgia, and you don't come near this family again. And, the baby? I asked, voice cracking. Nadine stared at me like I was slow. "There will be no baby," she said. "Stop acting like this is sacred. You were married to my son for 5 minutes. You don't get to tether him to you." Tether him to you. My stomach flipped with anger, but I kept my face soft. "I loved him," I whispered. Nadine's eyes were flat. "Love doesn't protect reputations," she said. "Love doesn't keep people from talking. Reputation again. Image again." I glanced at the documents. "What are those?" I asked, as if I was simply curious. "Estate matters," Nadine said lightly. "Insurance, legal cleanup." Cleanup. The word made my skin crawl. "I should get something," I said, voice small. "I'm his wife." Nadine's smile was thin. "You were," she corrected. "And you'll sign these to make sure you don't forget your place." She slid the stack toward me and placed a pen on top. "Sign," she said. I picked up the pen with shaking fingers and pretended to read. My eyes flicked over the language: waivers, acknowledgments, consent. Then a line in the fine print hit me like a slap. Payment in exchange for voluntary termination and relocation. A legal shield. A story crafted on paper. Nadine wasn't just cruel. She was careful. I forced a shaky laugh. "Oh, my hands are shaking," I said. "Can I have water?" Nadine rolled her eyes and stood. "Fine." She walked toward the kitchen, heels clicking, and my heart started racing because I knew this was my only window. I didn't sign. I let the pen hover, buying seconds. I tried to breathe quietly. I tried to listen. From the kitchen, Nadine called out, casual as if ordering groceries. "He's here, right?" A man's voice answered from the foyer. "Yeah." My blood went cold. Someone else was in the house. Before I could stand, the front lock turned. A key. From the outside. The door opened and a big man stepped in. Black beanie, heavy shoulders, eyes like stone. He shut the door behind him without looking away from me. He wasn't family. He wasn't a neighbor. He didn't carry flowers or sympathy. He carried purpose. He looked at me and half smiled. "You the widow?" he asked. My mouth went dry. From the kitchen, Nadine's voice floated in, sweet as poison. "Brick?" she called. "Make sure she doesn't run." The man moved, slow and deliberate, placing his body between me and the door. My baby kicked hard, sudden, like he felt the shift in air. My hand flew to my belly, and the recorder pressed against my skin, like it was trying to record my fear too. I sat on that couch with a pen in my hand, my future on the table, and a stranger blocking the only exit. Outside, the wind screamed against the windows. Inside, the house went very quiet. And then I heard it. Small, obedient, final. Click. The sound of a lock deciding I didn't belong on the other side anymore. That lock click landed in my chest like a verdict. Cold, mechanical, final. Brick didn't rush me. He didn't need to. He stood between me and the front door like a wall that could breathe. Nadine sat across from me as if we were negotiating curtains, not my life. The papers waited on the table. The pen waited on top. "Sign," she said. Under my coat, the recorder pressed against my ribs, warm and silent, catching her voice the way a net catches a falling body. "I'm trying," I whispered, keeping my eyes down. "You're a pregnant widow with no one here," Nadine said, voice sharp as winter. "You will do what's best for this family." My son kicked, hard, sudden, and my hand flew to my belly. I forced my breathing to slow. I could not panic. Panic would feed her. "Bathroom," I said softly. "I feel sick." Nadine's eyes narrowed. "Brick goes with you." My stomach dropped. "Please," I tried small. "I'm embarrassed." "So is disobeying me," she snapped. "Move." I walked down the hall with my knees barely steady. The bathroom door stayed half open, just like Nadine demanded. Brick stopped in the doorway, his reflection filling the mirror over the sink. I leaned over the counter like I might vomit. Instead, my hand slid into my pocket and found the small emergency phone Darius had given me. One button, One chance. My thumb hovered a heartbeat too long. Then Brick's voice came low. Don't do nothing stupid. That was enough. I pressed the button. No sound, no light. Just a tiny vibration, like a prayer leaving my palm. I turned on the faucet. Water ran loud, covering my breathing. I splashed my face, bought seconds, stared at myself in the mirror. Eyes too wide, lips too pale. Grief and fear stitched into a mask I couldn't remove. Then I went back out, because hiding in the bathroom wouldn't save me. Evidence would. Timing would. Nadine had the pen now, tapping it against the paperwork like a metronome. Sit, she ordered. I sat. Brick returned to the front door, shoulders squared. I picked up the pen again, letting my hand tremble on purpose. It says voluntary, I whispered. But you're telling me I have to. Nadine smiled, thin and pleased. It's voluntary because you're finally choosing to be smart, she said. You don't get to tether my son to you with a baby. He's our... I started. Stop, she cut in. Women like you trap men. You get pregnant for a check, then you cry on television when you don't get what you want. My throat burned, but I kept my face soft. I loved him. Prove it, she said. Let him go. The recorder drank it all. Every insult, every threat dressed up as help, every ounces of contempt she had been hiding under pearls. A heavy thud sounded from the porch. Brick's head turned slightly. Nadine didn't look up. Ignore it. The thud came again, closer. Then the doorbell rang. Brick glanced at Nadine. She lifted her chin. Go! He unlocked the deadbolt. That second click didn't feel final. It felt like a crack. He opened the door. Darius stood there, breath fogging in the cold, eyes hard. Behind him were two uniformed officers and a man in a dark coat with a badge clipped to his belt. Lieutenant Booker. For a fraction of a second, Brick's hand slid behind his back like he was reaching for something. Booker's voice cut the air. Police! Hands where I can see them! Darius stepped inside fast, placing himself between Brick and me. Back up, he warned. Nadine rose smoothly, outrage already polished onto her face. You can't barge into my home, she snapped. This is harassment. Booker didn't look at her yet. His eyes stayed on Brick until the officers moved in and cuffed him. The clink of metal echoed through the living room, loud and clean. Only then did Booker turn to Nadine. Ma'am, he said, calm. Step away from the table. Nadine's gaze slashed to me. Aaliyah, she hissed. What did you do? I swallowed. My voice shook, but it held. I asked for help, I said. Because you hired him to keep me from leaving, and you're forcing me to sign papers that pay me to end my pregnancy. Nadine laughed once, sharp. She's hysterical, she said. My son died and she's... Booker's gaze dropped to the table. The envelope of cash, the paperwork, the pen. Then he looked at me. Are you recording? Yes, I said. My fingers found the recorder beneath my coat. I held it out like it was my last lifeline. Darius took it gently and handed it to Booker. She turned it on before she walked in, he said. You'll hear everything. Nadine's smile faltered. That's illegal, she said, too quick. Booker's expression didn't change. What's illegal is coercion, he replied. And fraud, and intimidation. He nodded toward the paperwork. What is this? Estate documents, Nadine said. Insurance, cleaning up. I flipped the top page with shaking fingers, forcing my eyes to focus. It says, payment in exchange for voluntary termination and relocation, I read aloud. It says I agree not to contact the Sterling family. It says I accept money to end my pregnancy. Nadine's voice went colder. It's protection. People lie. You're building a story, I whispered. Paper so you can call me crazy later. Booker's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then lifted his eyes to Nadine again. We also have a statement from a clinic employee, he said. She says you attempted to schedule a procedure under your son's name and asked about camera retention. Nadine's face went pale, just for a moment, but it was real. Why would you use your son's name? Booker asked. If he's dead. Nadine's lips parted. Nothing came out. Booker nodded once, as if the silence was enough. Ma'am, you're coming with us. The officers cuffed her. Nadine didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just stared at me like she was memorizing my face for revenge. As they led her out, she leaned close and whispered, almost sweet, You'll never find him. My heart slammed. Find who? I breathed. Nadine's mouth curved. My son, she said. Because the truth is, he didn't just disappear. Then the cold air swallowed her, and the house finally felt like it had room to breathe again. I sank onto the couch, shaking. Darius crouched beside me. You did it, he said softly. Breathe. Booker came back in a minute later, voice lower now. Ms. Carter, he said, start from the beginning. The clinic receipt. The name. I told him about the receipt that printed Jalen Sterling at the top, how it stole my breath, and planted one forbidden thought. Husband faked his death, inside my skull. I told him about the burner phone and the secret phone recordings evidence, Jalen's voice and Nadine's voice, the way she pushed him, the way she talked about my baby like an obstacle. Booker held out his hand. We'll take the phone, he said. Darius stepped in quickly. We already made copies, he said. Multiple. Booker nodded approval. Good. If this is a cover-up conspiracy, evidence disappears. He turned to his team. Sweep the house. Find anything tied to the accident, insurance, travel, storage. While they searched, I stood by the window watching cars pass, half expecting Jalen to step out of one like a man returning from the dead. My son rolled inside me, slow and steady, reminding me that time was still moving. A voice called from the hallway. Lieutenant, locked drawer. Open it, Booker said. A crack, splintering wood. The drawer slid out. Inside was a velvet pouch, a passport, and a ring of keys with a brass tag. Booker lifted the tag. Warehouse 7. Darius's breath caught. Industrial, he murmured. Old docks. Booker pocketed the keys and looked at me. Did you ever hear your husband mention a warehouse? I shook my head. No, I whispered. But Nadine did. She always had places, plans. Booker's eyes went hard with purpose. Then we start there, he said. Now. We moved like we were late to our own lives. Booker split us, 2 cruisers ahead, 1 behind, lights off, sirens silent. Darius kept a hand on my elbow as we crossed the sidewalk, his touch steadying the shake in my bones. In the car, Booker's voice was clipped. No hero moves, he warned. You stay behind us. If you feel a cramp, you say it. Clear? I nodded, swallowing fear. Chicago's noise thinned as we drove south, away from neighborhoods and into industrial emptiness, where the air smelled like metal and old river water. Warehouse 7 sat behind a chain-link fence, a hulking shadow with a rusted sign hanging on. Booker cut the engine. For a moment, everything went quiet except my breathing. He signaled his team. 2 officers slipped around the perimeter while Booker and Darius walked me to the gate. The brass key fit like it had been waiting. The padlock popped open with a clack. Inside, the warehouse swallowed sound. Concrete, dust, stacks of broken pallets. A single work light burned over a metal desk, as if someone had just stepped away. On that desk lay a familiar object, Jalen's watch, the one I'd fastened on his wrist the morning he left. My knees almost gave out. He was here, I whispered. And somewhere deeper in the dark, a phone began to ring again, low, muffled, insisting on being answered. Darius glanced at my belly. You don't have to go. I swallowed, feeling my son's heartbeat like a drum under my skin. If he's alive, I said, steady, I'm going. Because if Jalen Sterling was somewhere behind a numbered door, then I wasn't just a pregnant widow anymore. I was a wife walking into the dark to bring her husband back into the light. That ringing sound in the warehouse didn't come from the air. It came from the dark, deep inside the building, like the place itself had a heartbeat. Booker lifted his hand, palm out, and his team froze. Flashlights stayed low. Weapons stayed ready. Nobody spoke, because silence was the only thing we had control over. The phone kept ringing, once, twice, a third time, then it stopped. And right after it stopped, a voice drifted out of the darkness. "Darius?" It was hoarse, barely louder than a whisper, but I knew it the way you know your own name. My lungs collapsed in my chest. "Jalen," I breathed. Darius took one careful step forward. "Jay, it's me." A shape moved behind a stack of pallets. A man stepped into the cone of a flashlight like he was stepping into water. Bandage around his forehead, bruises blooming under his eyes. His shoulders hunched like he'd been carrying weight in the dark for days. But it was him. The curve of his mouth, the scar near his left elbow. The watch, my watch, hanging loose on his wrist. Jalen Sterling was alive. For one wild second, I forgot everything. Forgot Nadine, forgot Brick, forgot paperwork, forgot the word burden. I only saw the man I had buried in my mind walking toward me like a ghost returning home. I ran. Darius grabbed my arm gently, steadying me, but I pulled free and crossed that concrete floor faster than my 5-month belly had any right to. When I reached Jalen, my hands found his face, warm and real, and my body did the only thing it knew how to do. I cried. Not quiet this time, not polite. I cried like my soul had been holding its breath since that phone call from his company. Jalen's eyes searched mine with pain and guilt so sharp it looked like it could cut him. "Aaliyah," he whispered. His voice broke. "I'm sorry." Booker stepped in, voice firm. "Sir, are you injured? Do you need medical?" Jalen flinched at the sound of authority, then nodded. I'm okay," he said. But it was a lie. His knees wobbled, and Darius caught him by the elbow. "Sit," Darius urged. Booker signaled one of his officers. "Call EMS," he ordered. Then he turned to Jalen, eyes hard. "You've been reported dead, Mr. Sterling. You want to explain why your wife is out here being coerced into signing paperwork and getting pushed toward a clinic." Jalen's face went gray. "A clinic," he repeated, like the word didn't belong in his mouth. I swallowed and forced myself to stand steady. "Your mother," I said softly. "She told me to get rid of the baby." Jalen blinked once, slow like he was trying to wake up inside his own nightmare. "My mother wouldn't." I lifted my chin. "She did." Darius stepped closer, voice low but sharp. "Jay, we have recordings." Jalen's eyes flicked to Darius, then to Booker, then back to me. The shame on his face was unbearable. "I thought I was protecting you," he whispered. "I thought if you didn't know anything, nobody could force you to talk." "That's the thing about secrets," Booker said. "They don't just hide danger, they hide victims." Jalen's shoulders sagged. "I didn't plan to stay gone," he said, words tumbling out. "I meant to disappear long enough to shake the pressure. Financial pressure, legal pressure, then come back. I told my mother because I thought she'd keep Aaliyah safe." I flinched at the word safe. "But she didn't," I said. "She used it." Jalen pressed his fingers to his temples like his skull hurt. "I started feeling something off," he said. "The route she insisted I take, the way she pushed me. And then, I got a text. 'Turn around, it's a trap.' I swerved. The truck clipped me anyway." His eyes went distant. "I woke up in a ditch, head bleeding, phone gone. I crawled to a road and hitchhiked to the only place I could think of where nobody would look." "Warehouse 7, Booker said, glancing at the keys they'd found. Jalen nodded. "My dad used to use it," he admitted. "Old storage. I hid here and tried to figure out what was real." His gaze snapped to me. "I was going to come for you." I touched my belly, feeling my son shift. A small reminder that life doesn't pause for male guilt. "You should have come," I said, voice shaking. "I buried you while you were breathing." Jalen's eyes flooded. "I know," he whispered. "And I will spend my whole life making it right." The ambulance siren grew closer, then faded as it stopped outside. Booker's officers moved with calm speed, checking the corners, securing the entrances. The chaos that had ruled my life for a week finally met something stronger: order. Booker faced me. "Ms. Carter," he said, "you did the right thing. The recorder, the paperwork, the clinic employee's statement. It's enough. Nadine Sterling is in custody. Brick is in custody. And now we have Mr. Sterling alive to confirm the cover-up." Cover-up. Family betrayal story. Husband faked his death. Evil mother-in-law. Clinic receipt with my husband's name. All the phrases that sound like online drama, until you live them and realize they are just different words for survival. EMS guided Jalen onto a stretcher. He tried to reach for me, but his hand shook. I stepped closer and took it anyway, pressing his palm to my belly. Our son kicked. Jalen's breath hitched like he'd been punched by joy. "Hey," he whispered, eyes wet. "I'm here." And for the first time in days, my body believed it. Later, after statements, after hospital lights, after Booker's team sealed the warehouse and collected evidence, I sat beside Jalen's bed while the city outside kept moving. He looked smaller in the hospital gown, but his eyes were clearer, steadier, like a man pulled back from a cliff. "I thought I lost you," he said, voice raw. "You almost did," I replied, honest. "Not to the accident. To the silence." He nodded like he deserved the truth. "No more secrets," he promised. And in that moment, I realized the real lesson wasn't about villains and twists. It was about how easily a woman can be erased when the wrong people control the story, and how powerful she becomes the second she decides to write her own. If you're watching this and you've ever been treated like your life is negotiable, hear me. You are not a burden. You are not a mistake. You are not paper someone else gets to file away. You're a whole human being, and you deserve a future that doesn't require you to beg for it. If my story stayed with you, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Like this video so I know you want more real-life stories with twists, and drop a comment telling me what city you're listening from and what time it is. I read them all. And on your screen right now, I've put 2 more stories for you. Tap one and let's keep going. Much love.